The federal government is investigating the reliability and the sustainability of Australia's liquid fuel reserves. This comes as new figures show the country has only 49 days of crude oil, petrol, diesel and jet fuel left in its reserves. Under an agreement with the IEA, the International Energy Agency, countries are expected to keep a 90-day fuel supply. But local production has been in decline, and there are concerns that conflicts in the Middle East could hamper our capacity to source fuel from overseas. Tony Wood is the Energy Program Director at the Grattan Institute. Tony, welcome back to breakfast.
Good morning, Fran.
So Josh Frydenberg, the Energy Minister, will launch a national energy security assessment of our liquid fuel reserves. It'll be done by the end of the year. I think we know the answer already, don't we? Our fuel reserves are declining and they're not where they're supposed to be. Isn't that the truth of it?
That's the truth of it. It's been that way for now some time, and a number of organisations, including a Senate inquiry in 2015, identified the problem and made some recommendations about what should be done at that point, and this risk assessment was one of those.
I mean, we've been doing stories on this for some years now. The question is, we've got 49 days supply of fuel left at one time. That's just over half the target required by the IEA. Why are we running on empty?
Well, I think the trick is that, as we found, previous ministers have found, the answers, the problem is easy to identify. The answers are either expensive or complicated or both. And I think that's what almost certainly this inquiry will come to that conclusion. And the issue then will be, what do we do about it? Because there's only 3 or 4 things we could do, but none of them are simple.
Well, what could we do? I mean, basically, the basic problem is we are too reliant on fuel from other countries, yes?
Indeed. So the shortest term thing we could do is we could increase the diversity of supply. If we're worried about supply coming from certain places, that would mean it would be more expensive because the distances would be longer. But that would be one thing. That would be
Tony, I'm just going to interrupt you because we're losing you. I don't know if you're moving with that mobile phone, but if you are, could you stop? Thanks.
I wasn't moving, but I'll try again.
That's better, yeah.
So one issue is we could increase the diversity of supply. That would be at least a short-term thing, so we wouldn't be so dependent upon one particular area such as the South China Sea. That still doesn't mean that we would address the problem of not being in
one of the deregulated energy markets. It means that you could be tapping into significant savings. And we thought, well, what can we do here to help people access them? We decided to launch a site that basically broke the commercial contracts between the commercial switching sites and the energy retailers and gave the power back to consumers. And it's canisaveonenergy.com.au. You upload a PDF of your bill and it'll tell you how much you can save. And depending on where you are in the country, it'll look at the best available deals from up to 30 retailers. And then if you sign up, it'll continue to switch you for 12 months.
This sorry to break in here. This is a concept that the ACCC
and everywhere.
There you go. ABC's gone off air.
Blanks has announced
There's not some financial breach of 90-day storage forever?
No, they're not. Other countries have.
Sorry about the quality. It's the closest I can get it.
We're the only country that's put in breach of this obligation. So we're a long way from everywhere else. So we are exposed. I guess the good news is that the diversity of supply, which has been the government and several governments, made the justification for not being too worried about this. That diversity of supply has ensured that we haven't been so far exposed to anything, and we haven't needed to respond. So we've had this problem in the bottom drawer, and we've not been too game to do something about it because, well, we probably don't. Maybe we'll get away for another year or so.
So what is the danger of being exposed? What does that mean, Tony? Well, what's it being exposed look like?
Okay,
should the rubber hit the road?
Well, we would run out very quickly. And we've got, in that 49 days in total means that in some areas of those products, because remember, there's not just one or two.
So what products are we talking about in terms of our daily lives?
Okay, there's petrol, there's diesel, and there's aviation gas, the fuel that's used for our aircraft. Now, we've only got, in our service stations, we've only got a few days' worth of supply. We've probably got about 2 weeks' worth of supply in our terminals and so forth. We've got a few, maybe another 2 weeks in our refineries, and then maybe a couple of weeks in the big ships on the sea. So we've only got, if things started to get nasty, and we found this every now and again when there's been a major industrial disruption at a refinery, we can run out very quickly. And because we are a country very spread out, we are very dependent upon petrol and diesel for even things like our fuel and things like our food and our other groceries and all those sort of things are dependent upon transport.
And what about our security? I note that Liberal Senator Jim Molan, a retired Army Major General, he said that Australia's forces, our defence forces, could be ineffective within 19 days if our fuel stockpiles were exhausted. I mean, that's a consideration.
Not just one single solution, but a range of solutions to integrate to each of the areas of Australia will be part of that.
Somebody's trying very hard to jam the ABC and stop this interview from getting out.
I think that's going to be an important piece of work to be done. It's been a long time coming. Now's the time to get on with the job, and hopefully we'll come up with some clear recommendations that then will be accepted by government and implemented.
You're listening to RM Breakfast. Our guest is Tony Wood, the Energy Program Director at the Grattan Institute. Tony Wood, as you said, we've been talking about this for some years now. Why do you think the Minister is moving now? Is it because of, there's plenty of trouble in the Middle East, no doubt about that, but because of particularly...
I'm going to tell you why the Minister's moving now,
in the South China Sea,
and I'm going to show you why the Minister's moving now.
And our reserves.
Well, because we do get a lot of our fuel from Southeast Asia, in particular Malaysia and Thailand, that means that that area of the world is critically important for safe passage of that fuel through to Australia. So nothing's changed as far as I'm aware in the underlying fact that we are, A, we're in breach of our international obligations of not having 90 days, and B, our domestic supply is potentially at risk if something goes wrong. The only thing that seems to have changed is finally we're getting around to doing the work to do something about it. Yep. And secondly, we do have, I think, some concerns that we could potentially be more exposed if there was to be a disruption of any sort in the South China Sea. And, even though the risk of that happening may still be quite small, the consequences, as we've just been saying, Fran, will be quite nasty.
The Federal Energy Minister, Josh Frydenberg, in this opinion piece in Fairfax Media today, says that over the past decade, and you've made this point, 7 domestic refineries have closed and our domestic production of liquid fuels has declined by a third. Do you think the government will look at reviving a local industry?
I'd be surprised. I think that's a very expensive alternative. And remember, our refineries never produce all of our own final diesel, petrol and gas anyway. The nature of our own oil just didn't suit itself for making the full variety of those things. So that wouldn't be the only solution. My suspicion is that's an alternative that's well and truly gone by. I think the other alternatives are going to turn out to be far lower cost and more flexible because, as I said before, I think over the longer term, moving away from fossil fuels is going to be necessary in the next few decades anyway.
Tony Wood, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, friend.
Tony Wood is the Energy Program Director at the Grattan Institute.
Okay, the Energy Program Director at the Grattan Institute, and they're wondering why it is that the Federal Minister, Josh Frydenberg, has suddenly started worrying about Australia's fuel insecurity. Well, let me show you something. Those of you familiar with the channel will be aware that I posted a video probably 7 weeks ago regarding Australia's fuel insecurity, and the video was based on this lead article, page 2 of the Australian newspaper. After I posted the video, I wrote to Barnaby Joyce on the 20th of April. Below that, 20th of March. And after 3/4 of a page of explaining to Barnaby why it was that when I spotted him and his pregnant girlfriend in a park in Glen Innes at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, I didn't jump out and stick my camera in his face, because in March, unlike in February, it was not news. So, after a suitable introduction, right, on to matters of national importance. If you check with your receptionist, you will find that I telephoned your office at a little after midday today to request that you first get a copy of and read the lead article on page 2 of Friday, 16/3/2018's Australian newspaper, titled "Low Fuel Stocks, a Major Security Concern for Vulnerable Australia" by Simon Benson. 5 years ago, the previous IEA report to the OECD on Australia's ongoing failure to meet the OECD requirements for member nations to permanently maintain an emergency fuel reserve amounting to 90 days' worth of consumption at normal rates of usage was covered by ABC Radio National. And I led Barnaby through my thoughts on the matter for 3 pages. Fractal bureaucratic overconcern for safety on the one hand and obsessive focus on the pursuit of efficiency to be achieved by cost-cutting affected by replacing stock on hand with overnight delivery of whatever is required to carry on trading on the other hand, between them have stuck us all in an incredibly stupid position, Barnaby, that despite our differing views regarding environmental issues, I, as a voting citizen within your electorate, require you, as my elected MP, to become sufficiently animated and passionate upon this topic as to manage to actually achieve something real and concrete which goes at least some way towards urgently remediating this deplorable status quo ante, which we have been bequeathed by our predecessors and we've grown to think of as being, quote, perfectly normal. It seems to me to be a reasonable request. Before I conclude, I feel an obligation to mention that while I fully recommend and request that you watch the video referred to on page 2, I also suggest that unless you are an appreciative connoisseur of anti-Barnaby Joyce videos of the excoriating kind, then please don't bother to watch any of my uploads which have your name in their titles. Just, ifiably, take it as read that in each and every one of them I figuratively pour a bucket of shite over yourself, because them's all part of the slings and arrows of environmental concerns and the broadacre agro cult of harvest everythingism within the potpourri of politics in Oz. Is that not so? I figure you're looking for a new start rather than digging into old shit fights, so here you go. I'm a Green voter and I'm on board with you going balls to the wall on the issue of fixing Australia's acute on chronic fuel insecurity. So get cracking to ensure that the PJCOIS report is acted on urgently and effectively. Off you go, good luck and have fun. I look forward to your reply. And the Ombudsman says that if it takes any longer than 6 weeks to get a reply back from a parliamentarian, then that constitutes non-feasance. So this came in 5.5 weeks after I wrote to him. So, here on YouTube, we have live the opening of the Barnaby Joyce letter. Let's see what Barnaby has to say. Dear Mr. Wharton, and he's actually written Chris there. Thank you for your letter of 20 March 2018 regarding my personal matters and energy supplies. I have noted your comments in relation to these matters and appreciate you contacting me. That's what he says. In regard to energy supplies, I have written to the Honourable Josh Frydenberg MP, Minister for the Environment and Energy, asking if consideration could be given to concerns and points you have raised for his advice in due course. Thank you once again for writing, and I will be in touch with you when I have received a reply to my representations. So says Barnaby Joyce. So there you go. Despite the fact that I've made lots of movies about what a dickhead he is and how wrong I think his policies are, when I wrote to him via snail mail, when it came in and hit his desk with a date stamp on it, he might have spent 5 weeks asking ASIO to check me out and find out whether I'm a dangerous Fruit Loop or not, but he actually answered the letter. And the fact that I told him why it was that I didn't jump out of my car and run after him and put the camera in his face, because I figured he wouldn't realise that I wanted to talk to him about fuel insecurity. He would think that I wanted to paparazzi him and his girlfriend, and he would have burred up, and he would have waved his arms and gone even redder in the face, and he would have got on his phone and called the cops, and I would have had a major shit fight if I had taken a shot at Barnaby, or taken the shot of Barnaby with my camera, which was available to me. But I didn't do that. I went through the accepted channels. I wrote to him, and he wrote to Frydenberg, and Frydenberg has written a public statement, and now the ABC's talking about it, and it's actually getting considered they're going to do something about it. All because I didn't jump on Barnaby straight away as soon as I saw him. I bit my tongue. I sat still. I ate my takeaway. I let him waddle his pregnant girlfriend 200 yards to where his car was. And I was between his car and them when I pulled up to eat my takeaway. Totally fortuitous. Anyway, we're on the upload limit. Warbles on a lot to YouTube. Fuel Security and Barnaby Joyce. Ciao.